Giffin Podcast.
Your virtual lab for inside-out transformation into the man God intended you to be.
Here, we use modern psychological concepts and spiritual tools to help you align your mind and machine to dominate your God-given mission. So put your purses down and your excuses away. Here's your coach, Jake Giffin.
Welcome to another day. This is another day of the podcast, man. I'm telling you, this is a beautiful time. It is August right now, August 2023, and it is raining. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but it's raining. And if you're in Southern California right now, you know what I mean. It's nuts. Today is a special day because we talk about where you ended up. How did you end up being where you are? Do you even know? It's so interesting. If you have kids, you know that you're raising the child. You're raising this little brain. It's an empty brain for the most part, and it's just waiting for you to fill it with stuff. Now, it already has some genetic modifications of its own. It took some of your wife, and it's got some of you, and it already has some, programmed tendencies that will reveal themselves over time. And I wonder if insecurity and that kind of stuff is even part of that, because, I'm a little insecure. My wife has been insecure in the past, and my kid, she's great. She's not as insecure, but I saw it early on in her life. So there's just some genetic things that are going to happen. But where do those things come from? Why do we do the things that we do? And the idea of conformity. You remember back, I don't know, man. I don't know where you guys come from, but where I come from, punk rock, heavy metal, non-conformity, not listening to the man, right? It's like anarchy in the UK or anarchy in the USA. It was like, yeah, bro, we're not trying to be somebody. We're not trying to be part of the machine. We're not trying to be part of the system, right? There's just this outrage. And yet, as you look back on those times, you realize that while I was anti-conformity to the system, I was at least conformity to whatever environment I was in, right? I was unique. If you compared me to, let's say, my parents or the people I went to school with, maybe. But I wasn't that unique in regards to the circles that I ran in. I wasn't that unique in that sense. Conformity is an interesting word because we don't usually know that it's happening. We don't know that it's going on. We're just walking through life, wondering what it's all about. We don't know what's going on. I guess it's maybe has some relation. Conformity. Tell me what you think of this. Because I think conformity has some relation to, let's say, evolution. Now, if you listen to this podcast, you know that I don't get any idea that we've transitioned from one species to another species. Right? So macroevolution, in my mind, is out of the question. That's fine. You can have your own opinion about it. I'm just saying science, whatever. And even, it doesn't hold water for me. But the idea of a person adapting to the environment they're in. People in Alaska have thicker blood, for instance. It's colder there. They've adapted. Their bodies have adapted to the environment specifically for the purpose of survival. And that happens all around the world. In hotter climates, blood is thinner. They have different food. They have different things that they drink. They have different ways about their life and different cultural things. And that is where I think microevolution and conformity maybe are very much the same thing. Well, let me explain. So I think if I go to Japan, now I'm fairly heavily tattooed. And if I go into Japan, which we have done, they don't look at me the same way they would look at my wife. They look at me with a little bit of a what is this guy? Is this guy a gang member? Is this guy what is this guy? Is this guy some kind of weird? This guy's not right, and they're intimidated maybe. But now fast forward, tattoos are becoming kind of the in thing now. Not like when I got them. They're becoming more acceptable socially, pretty much all over the world. Maybe not so much the Middle East or Asia right now, but they will be. And what is the difference right now? They're not maybe that acceptable right now in the Middle East, but when I say they will be, what does that mean? That means at some point, 1, 2, 3 generations down the line, it'll be acceptable. Now, how did that happen? Well, the current norms got challenged at some point, and the new idea and the new norms began to take root. And then those new norms became the new culture. That's microevolution at its finest. And the people within that environment, at the beginning, kick and scream. What? We're not going to do it. I can't believe this is happening. What do we? And then you go 2, 3 generations down the road. And if the ideal wins over, then that's the culture and people conform to it. Now, why would you conform to it? Because if you don't conform to it, you're an outsider. And outsiders in any social hierarchy do not win. You do not climb a social hierarchy by being a nonconformist. You just don't. There's no way that somebody from the outside is going to come into your social circle, be completely different than the vibe that you guys have going on, and are going to succeed on any level. And so you have these cultural changes, these evolutions, if you will, in society, and then the people at that point begin to conform to those new norms. Now, what do you have to do to conform to any set of circumstances? This is the easiest part. If I were doing a podcast on teaching all you guys how to conform to your environment and how to blend in, here's the good news. There's one step. Do nothing. Look, if you want to conform to an environment and you want to fit in and you don't want to challenge the status quo and you don't want to stand up, you don't want to have any alternative beliefs, if you don't want to have anything different, the best thing you can do is do nothing. Not only that, sit in your chair and consume as much content from that as you can. And you will eventually blend into the environment like a gecko on a tree. You will be mystique. Nobody will know. Nobody will know who you really are. You'll be the hunter in the tree wearing mossy oak, pointing down the barrel at some animal. That animal won't see you. Nobody will see you. You're there. That's the best thing about conforming to an environment is that you just blend in. It's so nice. And you don't have to do anything for it. You just hide out here in the open and nobody sees you. Isn't that great? I think it's like, for me, if I go through these phases where I'm feeling lazy and I'm feeling uninspired, let's say, and so I don't want to challenge myself and I don't want to grow. And I think, all this talk about gender and all this fighting and all this canceling and all this other stuff is just getting so old. And so many of you right now are thinking, amen, brother, this thing is old. But here's the point. The thing is that ideas happen. And then when ideas happen and it gets a root and it gets momentum and it gets backing and it grows and it grows and it grows, then you're at a place, a precipice, if you will, where you have to decide, do I give in? Do I just stay quiet? Do I just sit back? Do I just watch and consume and hope everything turns out fine? Or do I call, if I don't agree with it, that is, we're just talking about gender now, which is kind of nonsense. Because there's nobody throughout time who didn't think gender, who knew gender was going to be on the chopping block for societal change? Who knew that? Who knew that people were going to say, oh, hey, let's just all agree that there's no such thing as a man and a woman, right? Who knew that was going to happen? We didn't think lunacy could take that kind of exponential jump, but it seemed like it went through a wormhole and into the future and took some steroids. And now here we are in this weird argument that there's an argument about what gender is. Yes, I guess there is. And I don't understand it. And when you hear some of the gender professionals, gender fluid professionals or professors or whoever is talking about this crap, if you hear some of them talk, you would think the general IQ of society has dropped by 100 points. Now you can tell that what I'm doing right now is judging the crap out of the gender studies culture and in the cancel culture. There's an idea that got some momentum and then got some backing. And now we're at this place where there's a tension. There's a tension between some new idea and, well, let's not call it reality because then we show our bias, right? But it is reality. We all know. Penis, man, vagina, woman. You can have a baby. Hey, guess what? You're a lady. That's how it works. We don't make the rules. God makes the rules. That's how it works. Anyway, but we're at this precipice, this tension where if they take their foot off the gas a little bit, because now there's a lot of people speaking out against it. There's a lot of people fighting it. They went hard to the paint with this idea that there's no gender. And sometimes you push too hard and it causes some uprising. So as soon as you feel the tension, that uprising, just take your foot off the gas a little bit. Like if you're trying to make societal change, whether it's true or not, if you're trying to make societal change, you take your foot off the gas a little bit, get some of the pressure off, and just sit in stasis for a while. This is what, by and large, liberals have been super great at. They're super, and I'm not taking sides, right? I don't care. Politicians they're all a problem to me, but this is what, by and large, liberals have been great at. They push super hard until there's a lot of resistance, and then they pull back just before the uprising. And they lay in stasis until they can gain more ground. They're super smart when it comes to this, and it's fairly devious. Why do I bring this up? The reason I bring this up is because these ideas come in, then there's a tension that backs back down into stasis. If this idea, as an example, this is not about gender studies. This podcast is not. It's about conforming. It's about conforming and it's about elevating. So we talk about conforming. If this particular idea gets root, and it has on some level, but if it lasts, and then gender studies professors, all over the world are starting to teach this to young minds, young, pliable minds. And then they become the leaders, the lawmakers, the culture changers, the influencers. Now I'm 50 years old, so what do I know? But I know this, that when my daughter's 50 years old, when her grandkids are 50 years old, if the idea takes root, her grandkids, her great-grandkids will not be called by gender. And gender will have been some construct that people held for thousands of years that we finally shed ourselves from. And can you actually believe that people used to believe in male and female? And her grandkids and all of society at that point will hold to that. And that is a transformation of a culture. The conformity to the culture is what happens slowly as we consume its content, as we consume its ideas, as we are influenced by their influencers. This, at the very least, is what's considered the world from a Judeo-Christian perspective. The world. The best thing about cultural change is culture is always going to change. The hardest thing about conformity to things that are not godly ideas is that you don't have to do anything. Sit there, consume its content, be influenced by its influencers, and let yourself over to it. I can hear it in your voice. When I talk to you face to face, or I talk to you online, or I talk to you anywhere else, if we get into long form conversation, I can tell where culture has had its effect on you. And you can tell, if you listen to my words, where culture has had an effect on me. And that's conformity. But what does Paul warn us about? Romans chapter 12, he warns us, don't be conformed to this world. That's what I mean. And I'm not talking just gender studies. I'm talking about anything. How many, since my return to Facebook, in my quest to serve men, I have, somewhat to my surprise, but somewhat to not my surprise, I've run into dozens of Christian men who are struggling. It's not nuts. God, I was going to say it's nuts, but it's kind of not crazy. It's not crazy. We don't know who we are. And we believe that the totality of who we are is in the behaviors and not in the identity. And so, since behaviors follow identity, very literally at the hierarchy of change, identity is at the top. Then beliefs, capabilities, behavior is close to the bottom of the hierarchy. We teach people in behavior what to do as a behavior of being a Christian, but we don't tell them what being a Christian, what that makes you, what's your identity. So that's a different story. Incidentally, to fulfill that hierarchical change role, at the bottom is environment. Environment's the lowest level at which you can change a problem, and it is the least fruitful. So, I'm not going to go into that, but that's a different time, different subject, different time. But let's take pornography, for instance. I remember watching through Friends, the TV show. And it's a funny show, but I remember that was the first show that I remember, that I can remember. I'm sure there was more, but that's the first show I remember that normalized porn. Because I think Chandler or Ross, I think, was going, they would bring it up every once in a while. Oh yeah, just take the porn off, whatever it was. I can't remember, but I know that I remember them kind of normalizing it. And society, by and large, normalized it. When I was a kid, it was super taboo. Like, oh my gosh, you watch porn? What are you, like a pervert? Now it's like, oh, you watch porn? Yeah, of course you do. So it's super weird. It's super weird. Like as a side note, because I'm prone to side notes, as a side note, you have to admit that you, man, godly man, watching two strangers have sex, it's weird. Super weird. Right? Like, you can't deny that it's weird. Strange. As soon as you admit it, the more you can move on. But if society says, yeah, that's okay, it's no problem. And all of society conforms to this idea that it's not a problem. That's conformity. Those ideas infiltrate even the Christian mind. And then you go, well, it must not be too big a deal. It's natural. My body needs to get, some kind of release, or, sex is totally normal. And, if my wife won't have sex with me, well, I might as well just do it myself. And you're like, I understand that because I'm a man, but like, think about this. It's weird, but people don't think it's weird because on some level, our minds have been conformed to the cultural norm that it made porn. Let's say you have a culture that, I'm in sales, right? So everything I do sales training, teaching my guys. I've been teaching sales and stuff for, 20 years. And this is maybe better. So we're not talking about sales, let's talk about practical application of conformity and culture. If you are in sales, Chinese have a different way of negotiating than Middle Eastern people. Fact. Doesn't matter. This is pointing out their nationality. If you're going, oh my God, Jake, you're so racist. This is not race. This is just facts. When you negotiate with a Chinese person, their culture is they don't bring up price. How do you negotiate price from an American standpoint? From a Middle Eastern standpoint, how do you negotiate price when you won't throw out a number? And I'm the sales guy. I'm not going to negotiate against myself. That's weird. So here's a little tip. If you're in sales and you're selling to a Chinese homeowner, let's say you're in home sales, you're making closets, custom closets, or you're a plumber. A little helpful tip. Now, this is just take it for what it is. But if your service is $1,600, then you have to raise it to like $2,000. You raise it to $2,000, $2,100, because you're going to give it back. That's the only way to do it with Chinese folks. You just go, hey, look, I'm going to do all this work for you, blah, blah, blah. You do your presentation, whoop, 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 whoop. And you go, I'm going to do it all for like $2,100. All right. And they go, oh no, you need to go lower. And you say, well, how much lower? What are you thinking? And they go, just lower, right? Because they don't bring up price. So you're not going to win that. There's not a good communication there. So you go, all right, look, I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this, but I think what I'll do, if you'll pull the trigger on this today, I'll do it for you for $1,500. I'm going to take $500 off. That's a great deal. You got to take it though while I'm here, because I won't be able to honor this when I leave. And that's it. That's it. If you walk out without a deal, you don't get the deal. You're not getting that deal. So accept that. Now you go to a Middle Eastern guy, for instance. So Middle Eastern guy's different. Middle Eastern guys are great because their whole culture in the Middle East is, I offer you this pomegranate for $27 and you tell me I want to buy it for $6. And then we play the game. And they're great at the game. And it's so much fun to play. It's so much fun to play with Middle Eastern guys because there's no pretense. Right? This is you want what? You want $2,000 for that? I'll give you 12. And you look at him and you go, 12? 12, dude, I can't do anything for 12. $1,200. Are you talking about $1,200 for the service I just presented to you? You're no way. I can't do 12. Look, what I can do though, I could do 18. He goes, no. He goes, no, 18, 14, whatever it is. So you play the game and it's great. It's great because you can talk to them. They're going to talk to you straight, like a man. Even the women are going to talk to you straight like a man. They don't take, right? If they're by themselves, or they'll usually hand it off to the man if they're a traditional Middle Eastern couple, but they'll talk to you straight. That's their culture. So when you try to impose your culture on their culture, then you're fighting a losing battle. Now in America today, we have multiple cultures. And the multiple cultures, in part, is where we're having the infighting and the non-conformity. Because there's a lot of different cultures with a lot of different ideas and a lot of different things going on, pushing and pulling and jiving with one another to try to figure out evolutionarily how to fit into one another and who gets to control the system. Because ultimately, you don't want to live within a system that you don't control, because that's scary. So, where does that leave us? That leaves us here, where what Paul is talking about in Romans 12 is that to be conformed to the culture, you absolutely need to do nothing. It is literally a Greek passive verb. Do you know what you have to do to be conformed to the world? Nothing. Conformity will happen to you. If you want to be conformed and you want to fit in, good news, do absolutely nothing. If you want to be if you want to just blend in and not be seen, good news, do absolutely nothing. Stand for nothing, speak for nothing, close your mouth when you object. That is conformity, and it's easy. You just simply say and do nothing. When that idea happens to Christian men, and they're suffering in sin, running down this Romans 1 drift, where they're compromising God's character, and when they're compromising moral standards, and when they're compromising into sin, and they're giving up slowly, heading toward the brink. In that Romans 1, men tend to lose themselves when they're silent, when they're not fighting. And here's the problem. If your idea is to conform, you can do nothing, but you will lose yourself. You can't, if your goal is not to rock the boat, if your goal is to fit in and not be seen, or fit in and not cause any ripples, the good news is you don't have to do anything. And you will eventually believe what they believe. And you will lose yourself. He says in Romans chapter 12, after that, something that Paul says a lot. And while Paul didn't have a background in neuro-linguistic programming, for instance, or transactional analysis as an example, or Freudian psychological principles, or follow the works of, Eric Berne is transactional, or Carl Jung, if he didn't have any of that background in psychology. But what he knew was that if you wanted to keep from conforming and you wanted to become more like the man you're supposed to be, reflecting the image of God, then you had to be transformed by renewing your mind. Now that takes work. That takes work. That takes a lot of work. That takes commitment and work. And if you're lazy and you don't want to do the work, you get to conform to the culture and lose yourself. But the high stake is losing yourself means losing maybe more than yourself. It maybe means losing your family. It maybe means losing your job. It maybe means losing your sanity as you slowly boil in this culture of conformity, the rewards for that are, well, you just simply aren't seen. And then you go away. And the culture moves on. Transforming, becoming better, challenging yourself, becoming more like what God wants you to be, becoming the man you were intended to be, becoming something greater, becoming something fascinating. You've already become new. You're a new thing. When you gave your life to Christ, you became a new thing. The transformation of the mind. The reprogramming of the mind towards godly things, what he would do, rather than letting it be conformed to and programmed by the culture. That is what Paul is talking about. That takes work. And too many guys that I'm seeing on Facebook right now, there's too many men on Facebook right now. I'm going to tell you there's too many that are saying, man, I've really tried. I've really given it the old college shot. I've given this Christianity thing the old college try. And it just isn't working. It's not working. So what are you doing? What are you doing? How did you come to know spiritual truth? How did you come to be connected to God? How did you come to be forgiven of the sins that you've done? The sins that have separated you from God. How did you come to have those wiped out and be reconciled to the creator of the universe? How have you done that? Oh, well, I grew up in the church. Well, maybe that's your problem, bro. Maybe you don't really understand the majesty and grace and love that has been presented to you in the gospel, where Jesus dies, was buried, and rose from the grave so that your sins would be erased and so that you could have reconciliation and relationship with the creator of the universe. Maybe you're not quite considering or understanding or comprehending that when he took your punishment on the cross, he took an eternity of hell on your behalf. Maybe you're not quite getting that picture. Not quite understanding the love and the grace that is involved in somebody sacrificing everything for you. Oh, it's not working. It's not working. I took a class, I took a course. I took a course on how to be a Christian. And, I took a course on how to be a Christian, and it told me that if I would read my Bible every day, and I would say some words that were considered pray, and I would go to church, and I would serve. I serve food. I serve in the children's ministry. I serve. If I was told that if I did that, then I would be a Christian. I'm a Christian. That's not it, dude. Those are the things that are an outflow of a relationship with God. But that's not, we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, where we've catered in some behaviors of how Christians behave. And we've ignored the reason that they behave like that. And that's what got lost in the Christian culture. We've conformed to this idea that, well, now that you're saved, here are some things that now that you have spiritual life and you're connected to God, here are the behaviors we expect. Rather than saying, if you knew now who you are, being connected to the Creator, if you really comprehended, if you really got what it meant to be something brand new. Yesterday, you were a sinful wreck who owed God a debt. And now you are as white as snow. And that debt's wiped clean. If you really understood, if you really got it, if it really made sense to you, you would recognize that, oh my gosh, I am a son of God. Oh my gosh, I have inherited something amazing. And I want to do everything in my ability, in my power, to live worthy of that. I want to live worthy of that. I want to live worthy of that grace and love, and I want to live worthy of that. And so that means I'm going to develop this robust relationship with the Creator. And the things that are in my life that I need to get rid of, if I have to, I'm going to fast. I'm going to stop eating for as long as I need to stop eating so that I can get the answers I need to get. I will not let my body dictate what we do. So I'm going to seek it out. And you know what's really interesting? The closer you get to God, the more you pray, the more you read, just out of sheer curiosity of what this book says about him. I'm going to pray and I'm going to read. Oh, how can I support other people? Where can I serve? Right? Oh my gosh. This life is so beautiful. I need to share it with other people. See, the behaviors of a Christian are a result of the relationship built on sacrifice. And so when you say you're trying it and you're failing, yep, it's exactly what you're doing. Because this isn't about try, it's about do. It's not even about doing, it's about being. Who are you? And here's the problem, man. Even if you follow the track I just told you, where you're madly in love with God and everything he's done for you, and you have this amazing gratitude, and you are showing up and you are in worship, spirit and in truth, you are worshiping him. There's still some shadow of the old man left that is going to rear its head. And the culture around you is okay with that. Because the culture around you likes that part of you. And you like that part of you because it makes you blend in with the culture and it doesn't make you weird. By the way, Christians are the only ones who walk around wondering if they're weird. You ever see Muslims walking around I'm afraid the world's not going to like me? No, dude, they got the most radical evangelical method ever. Right? You ever see Buddhists walking around going, I'm really afraid of what you might think of me? None of them. Christians are the only ones that are I really want to follow this Jesus guy, but I'm afraid of what the world might think. Well, if that's where you're at, then you're in trouble. So anyway, so you have this part of you, this residue, this old man that's there that likes being part of the world. And so if you do nothing, if you don't love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and you're just in this to see what it will do for you, then you will no doubt conform back to the culture. Because while being in love and showing worship and having that relationship that was earned for you by sacrifice, when you truly understand that and you embody that and grow in that, it transforms your mind. It changes the way you think about things. It changes the way you behave. It gives you greater capabilities. It changes your beliefs about society and things around you. And it changes ultimately who you know that you are. And when your identity lines up with who God is, then you have a winning scenario by which you can nurture by means of work to transform your mind to God's image. And don't let yourself be conformed by passively letting life happen to you. That is the difference. Conformity takes no work. Transformation takes some work, but that work is rooted in love and grace and strength and hope. And now, as the next door neighbors are making some obnoxious noise in their warehouse, I'm going to wrap this up. And until next time.
If you enjoyed this show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. For more information about Jake, log on to jakegiffin.com and find him on all social media platforms.
Until next time, peace and power be yours.